Hello, everyone. It looks like we're about where everyone has joined that's going to, and if not, they'll just kind of trickle in as we're talking. Just want to introduce myself. My name is Alex Dean. Some of you may know me as Alex Bornman as well. I am the orientation and mobility instructor at Lighthouse for the Blind of Fort Worth. With me, I have Sean Keene, who is assistive technology specialist here at Lighthouse for the Blind of Fort Worth.
Hello.
And we have Jill Brown and Olga. Oh gosh, Olga, you're gonna have to say your last name.
Uriegas, it's real easy.
So we have them here to talk to us about navigating O&M during COVID-19. In the beginning, they're just gonna kind of go through their slideshow, and then I believe we're gonna kind of open it up to just everyone speaking. We're gonna try to keep everyone on mute during the entire time. If you have any comments, questions, or concerns, please keep them in the chat, or you can raise your hand, and then we'll go from there. Sean, anything you want to add?
No, just welcome. Thanks everybody for joining, and yeah, Olga and Jill, we'll turn it over to you.
Okay.
Thank you.
I'm going to keep the slide up there for my show. Y'all can see me in a few minutes, but I was talking to Leslie about how COVID has affected us and how people are trying to continue with their lessons via virtual means, however we can. And she said, oh, you know what, how are they doing O&M? So I am an O&M instructor. I'm not COMS. I'm not certified O&M because I was at the Education Service Center. I was not working with clients, so I didn't have enough hours to send to the certification guys to recertify. Anyway, there's a way to do that now, but I really haven't. So I am OMS without the C in front of it. Anyway, Jill?
And I'm Jill Brown. I'm duly certified. I am a certified OM comms and teacher of the visually impaired.
Okay. All right. So, and I know they said not to talk till the end, but there will be some times that we will ask for your input, please. And we're not going to go around and introduce all of us because it would take forever and we would be here till 5 o'clock in the afternoon. Anyway, so when we come up with something, please, this is a brainstorming session. So this is not Olga and Jill are going to tell you or, ask you how you're doing things. We're going to all brainstorm and you'll see how we're doing it. We originally just had an agenda. And then that agenda grew to agenda with a whole bunch of notes. And then from that agenda, I thought, I can't do this like this. So we had to I came up with a PowerPoint. So I'm so glad Jill just went with it. All right. So the pandemic has been crazy, especially affecting O&M instructors. Okay. So the Lighthouse said, let's brainstorm about this. So this is to bring your ideas on how to adapt and continue to provide the training while practicing social distancing and to keep ourselves safe during this pandemic. We have a guidance letter from ACVREP that is specifically written for O&M, okay? ACVREP has one written for O&M and then there's another one written for rehab people. So if you click on anything that's blue, it does have hyperlinks, so it will take you straight to that guidance letter. And the guidance letter says to make sure you manage your risk, to pay attention to the client's risk, because there might be falls or there might be collisions or maybe what you're trying to teach is too great an effort for your clients. So the whole guidance letter is there from ACVREP. So people have all been provided guidances from your agency, from your school district. I know the CDC, the Center for Disease Control, has guidelines for social distancing. There are guidance from all over the place. This is not just something that people made up. What do we do? How do we do it? So all these guidances that I looked at basically ask you to be careful, to support your clients, to make sure that you stay separated, you wear masks, you wear PPE, which is personal protection equipment, to always have a level of insight and knowledge of your skills that you're teaching, to make sure that the client is able to do that, to be sensitive to any grief that our clients might have, and for school districts that our families might have. COVID has brought lots of grief to some families. Interruptions and changes that are due to COVID to the child, the individual, the school, the community. So be careful. Anyway, if you need a guidance letter, if you need anything, that is there from ACVRP. And I'm sure, and then CDC has guidelines. And then I'm sure your school district probably has some guidelines. Jill, will you talk about Chris Tab?
Chris Tab has a live binder shelf, and I don't know if you are familiar with what live binders are. Olga, can you kind of click on that to kind of show what it would look like?
Sure. And if you have the...
A live binder is a collection of information. It could be other websites. It could be documents that were written. Chris has an extensive library of resources. And Olga, we're getting a black screen.
Oh no, really? I see the live binders.
No, ma'am, we're getting a black screen over Zoom.
Okay. Please remove this window, it says. Okay. I'm sorry, yeah. Now what do you see?
A black screen. Now I see the PowerPoint.
Okay, let me bring it up and do this and you.
It's still a black screen. Do you want me to share my screen?
How about now?
Okay, now we have it.
Okay.
So here's a collection that Chris did on all kinds of information. And if you see the second one from the top, it says remote and virtual O&M services. Go ahead and click on that. Just to kind of show you, on the left, he has all kinds of resources for remote instruction resources and ideas, research on telepractice guidelines, because we know you're going to use a variety of platforms when doing virtual. Other examples of remote assistance, additional remote instruction resources. If you click on any of these on the left, it will bring up a subset that you can kind of go through.
Can y'all see that? Did it bring up the subset?
Yes, yes. The subset's in gray.
Mm-hmm.
So Chris kind of keeps this updated as we go along. Thank you.
I'll get back. I know it's not
okay.
It's not doing
okay.
what I wanted. No.
Oh no, I'm sorry.
That's okay. It's not. Keep going. Keep going.
But he has a lot of instruction that he does. I'm trying to get to my PowerPoint. No, we still see that.
Okay.
So when we're navigating O&M, we got to look at a variety of things going on. We want to look at, okay, Olga, we're still on the Zoom. We're not on the PowerPoint.
I'm trying, sorry.
Oh, okay, okay. Yeah, I'm just going to keep going. Okay.
Is it on the PowerPoint?
Okay, there it is. Now yes, now it's on the PowerPoint. Okay. We want to look at the family needs and how is this COVID going to affect our clients and our students because they are staying at home. What are their accessibility, availability at home? What is the family going through? Or do they have a job or don't have a job? What support are our clients from their spouses or from our students from their families? What are they going to get? Then we also have to look at what are the needs of the agency we're working for or the school district. They have a separate guidelines that they have to follow. We want to look at if for those that are going to work as an O&M, what are the work site regulations for you as the O&M to go in and help orient that client to their job site? What are our needs as the instructor to be safe, but yet be accessible?
And I'll do this.
Uh,
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
Situational awareness. And then we want some input because it's hard to do it where no one talks to us. Okay, situational awareness. If you guys are military families or airport people, you might know situational awareness. Knowing what's going on around you, you know, what is it? What is it that the family needs? What is it that the agency is requiring of you or requiring of your client or your student, your school district needs? You know, is situational awareness a lot of times is knowing what's going on around us, the elements in your environment, the compensation, the comprehension of their meaning. What does that mean for the future of you teaching this child? Or the work site, the work site where your client works and you're going to teach them O&M, they're requiring certain things because of COVID. Okay, and then our needs, you know, we have in the school system, we have IEPs, you know, in the Texas Workforce Commission, you know, they might have, I don't know, family program plans. So situational awareness works with the military, works with airlines, works with sports. Always be aware of your environment and what is going on and what those needs are. So in COVID-19 O&M, we're talking about our family needs, our agency needs, and all of this is really our student needs. So let's hear from some of you. What is it that you are doing that, like right now, I know Fort Worth ISD is not going to be in session until September 8th. My secretary has young children in her home, and they're going to be virtual. They're not going to be on campus for the first 4 weeks. So how are those O&M instructors that are at Fort Worth ISD going to be providing O&M for the first 4 weeks of school, or even before then? That's going to be a huge issue. Okay. Can we hear from some of you? Lighthouse?
Before anyone speaks, we just want to let everyone know that all this is being recorded and it will be posted onto YouTube it will be posted onto YouTube. So if you are not comfortable with that, you don't need to speak, but we just wanted to make sure we made everyone aware of that.
Thank you.
You can also write in the chat window.
Right. Lighthouse, you want to share what
We got in a chat right now. Many of my O&M students were getting transition/career and community training within their vocational training at the high school.
Mm-hmm.
Here we've been doing a lot of Zoom calls. So we did not just some O&M tips. So in the beginning, I was doing some orientation and mobility tips on a Zoom call, kind of going over some things that you can work on in the home, some cane skills that you can practice, trailing, dropped objects, and things like that. And then we actually posted the videos on YouTube. And then along with we did AT stuff and independent living skills as well. And we just posted everything on YouTube. So you could go back and look at it at a later time.
Excellent. Anybody else? A school district, perhaps?
Mindy said ideas for remote learning for my Amish kids went through snail mail. Some people transitioned their O&M to daily living skills. Northside ISD said they have no guidance yet. Hopefully they'll have some by Friday. Students go back on the 24th. Adult agency, Zoom remote lessons using iPhone in a harness or having a family member hold the camera. Community lessons or outside are still occurring for Eagle Mountain Saginaw. Lots of screen sharing for route planning lessons from Ashley.
I do have a question about what was everyone's, how did they get everything approved? Like, did you have to go through a certain sheet that you had to get signed off on? How did that work out for everyone?
What are you referring to? If we made the change to DLS or?
Yeah, if it's for like online stuff or doing these things where you had an adult hold a phone and helped you train the kid via Zoom, like there would have to be some sort of sign off on that, I feel like, to get that approved. Does that make sense?
I know in Crowley ISD, we did an amendment to the IEP for students.
Okay. Yeah, I'm just wondering for students versus adults, what that document, oh, here's someone said.
Mhm.
Discuss risks with adult clients and documented. Okay. Just the documentation, got it.
And it might be that whatever the school decides, if they say go virtual, that there might not be a sign off, you know, if that's what the school's saying, if what their guidelines, like Northside ISD said they haven't heard anything from anybody. Maybe when they hear from their school district, it might be whatever the board decides how teachers are going to go virtually will include the O&M instructor, you know, because they are
Okay.
instructors.
Can you
It might
guys hear
be
me?
that they don't have to have anything signed off.
Can you guys hear me? This is Jessica Rose from Northside ISD. I'm looking for I can't remember what they called it. It wasn't a certificate of something. It was like a continuation of services or something form that we did, and we sent out to all our families. And so it kind of suspended the IEP based on what we could provide during this time. And I don't know if they're going to continue with that in the fall, or it sounded like we were going to go to ARD for everybody and change all the IEPs. So I don't know.
Yeah.
That would take
Yeah,
time.
what
I have a
what
district that's
Crowley
already
did
started.
was the case managers went in and contacted the families to do the addendum. But I want to read out in the chat, Patricia. I
I
think,
have a district. Let's see.
yes,
I have a
go
district
ahead.
that's already started, and I've had both of the students I have in this district both chose virtual. One of the parents agreed to bring the student to the school just for their related services. And we agreed that we would be sure the halls were clear or the room was clear of other students, and they agreed to that. The other parent hasn't decided, and I've checked the special ed director, I haven't heard back, because I don't know if that's a district decision or, you know, another, I don't know. That's the only thing I'm dealing with right now is if they do choose not to come to the school and they want me to come to their house and I can't, but then I guess we'll have to figure out a virtual way to do it. So it might be an option for some students or for some districts to have the kid come to the school, even if they chose virtual.
Let me ask this
I
of
don't
the
know.
O&M instructors that are providing services one-on-one. Can you take a student out, say mom meets you at the corner of their street? Can you take a student out, you know, from that corner on, like stay 6 feet apart or 4 feet apart with your gloves and your mask on? Can you do that? Do you know? Anyone?
I did wear a mask and gloves in my session. This particular student was difficult to stay 6 feet away, but
Right.
Yeah.
also the DI teacher couldn't do services 6 feet away either. So, I mean,
Right.
I guess it's just the comfort level of the parent, maybe. If they're agreeing to bring them up there, this particular student, you have to be.
And I'm talking about someone that's probably already had lessons and you're just going to keep doing, you know, improving the lessons they've had. Not someone that's just going to learn how to, you know, to walk down the sidewalk to the corner and cross the street, but someone that's already trained.
So what I'm reading in the chat is there is a mixture or a variety of what you are allowed and not allowed to do. And all the suggestions we give or that you will hear, remember, you just have to take into context what is right for your client or your student, what is safe for you, and what your district or your agency is going to allow. And I think over the next year, it is going to be a continuum of different kinds of services as we go through the year. It may be that it's all virtual right now, and then maybe we can go into some limited human contact, maybe keeping our distance, and then have to keep going back and forth. So you just have to take into account what you are allowed to do.
Okay, so beyond your family needs, your work needs, your school district needs, you know, all of your needs, all of that really should come your assessment needs. And we're preaching to the choir here, but we know the assessments for orientation and mobility can be TAPS, Texas 2-steps. And yes, it's written twice. It's not an error. That's because the hyperlink, I should have put a different title on that. The hyperlink has two TAPS names there. One, if you click on it, will take you, and I'm not going to click on it. We're like scared of losing whatever I have on the screen. One has tabs where you can order from the Texas School for the Blind, and the second tabs has an outline that we used for a presentation that we gave on the 16 assessments that we use, 16 plus assessments that we use to write up the whole curriculum. So you might want to tap on the second one that'll show what it is that
Hey, Olga.
Yes.
Hey, this is Sean. I just wanted to mention as well, just, I mean, I know working with the students is important, but tips for working with adults as well. It'd be, you know, we'd be interested in that, hearing from folks that have experience with that as well.
Yes. Okay, and that's great because I called Andrew Burnett and I asked him, okay, Andrew, what do you use for assessments for adults? And he tells me there's a Texas Workforce Commission voc rehab assessment form that they fill out, and he's going to help me here. Andrew, I think you're listening to us. Are you on?
Yeah, so we do have some of the TWC field O&Ms on here as well. And what Chris Cole is doing versus what the in-house O&Ms are doing and versus the contractors are doing is slightly different. But we all basically have different forms that it's an itinerized list of basically all the skills. It's kind of similar to the list of skills inventory in TAPS, but it's in our TWC forms.
Okay. So are you going out with your clients? Are you meeting with them via Zoom or FaceTime? What are some of the things that Chris Cole's doing?
As of right now, TWC is not allowing us to do in face as TWC employees. However, TWC contractors can provide services provided they get a I think it's I want to say it's the 3472. I can't say, I'm just winging that off the top of my head, but it's amendment to services. There's a form that's on that forms library. If you just Google TWC vocational rehabilitation forms, it has them all on there.
So you guys aren't doing any virtual, any like online teaching either?
So virtual, we're doing a lot of knowledge-based teaching, basically explaining skills and kind of talking about the rationality behind, okay, if I do, you know, A, then that's going to cause this to happen. If I do B, then this is going to happen. And really working on different problem solving. There's also been there's been some instruction being provided as far as, you know, you can make use of the various different GPS applications out there, whether it's Nearby Explorer, if it's Blind Square, if it's Lazarillo, if it's Soundscape, to kind of create a virtual kind of beacon and breadcrumb your way out. And, you know, definitely don't go past what your skill level allows you to do, but kind of using those to kind of retrace your route and just getting out and keeping those skills sharps. Yeah. Since a lot of times, you know, whenever students don't use their skills, you see there's like a kind of drop off, a loss of that ability and skills, like some rust that they got to kind of metaphorically knock off.
So you're constantly doing a verbal needs assessment. You're constantly looking back at their foundations.
Yeah.
Concepts, and I had a story about a washing machine that we'll talk about later. Constantly what they're doing in their house or in their job sites, and then with lots of courtesy protocols that we have to keep in mind, you know, for what our patients and our clients, our students have access to.
And there was a question that came in through the chat, is how do you do an O&M assessment virtually? And I think when you go back, because we are now limited at our hands-on and what we can and cannot do, is we're going to have to start really looking at concept development for the adults. Again, I would say the first thing to do is verbal needs. Prioritize what does that adult need in their life to be independent, to be successful. So we're going to have to take a step back and not try to teach everything all at once like we normally have always been doing. We're going to have to slow down. If we can get some face-to-face, staying 6 foot, we can do some assessment. And maybe when you're writing up your report, you're going to have to say, due to the extraordinary times, a full assessment cannot be done. For example, to crossing a street or type of stuff. If you can't do it, you could say, not at this time, it can't be done.
And now
so
I can say my story about the washing machine, huh, Jill?
Yes, go ahead.
A little thing about a washing machine. I was at California School for the Blind, where I was an O&M instructor in assessment, and I worked in the assessment center as well. We're running a summer program for high school graduates going to college. It's just like the summer after their senior year, right? It was a fun 3-week thing that the School for the Blind had for all the kids in the state. It wasn't kind of like School for the Blind here has, Texas School for the Blind. So we have this brilliant, totally blind valedictorian from one of the high schools, and she comes running to me. We each had 3 kids. We were all teachers. She says, Miss Uriegas, something's wrong with the washing machine. I said, what's wrong with the washing machine? She said, it didn't fold my clothes. And I said, it didn't fold your clothes? And she says, no. I said, okay, let's go see. So I went to see, and there are her clothes. They're just in the dryer, like they're in my dryer and your dryer. Okay, and I said, okay, my dryer doesn't fold clothes. I don't think this dryer folds clothes either. Tell me about your folding dryer. It's not washing. Tell me about your folding dryer. It's really a dryer story. Tell me about your folding dryer machine at home. And she says, well, when I get home, all my clothes are dry and they're folded in the dryer. And I said, what? And she said, yes, they're folded. And I said, well, don't you think your mother folds them? Her mother had never let her take the clothes out of the dryer, put them on the counter or the table or whatever you use, and folded them. Her mother would take them out, fold them, and leave them in the dryer on this little thing that I think comes with the dryer so that you can put sweaters on there. And this little girl would come home, this grown-up girl, she was a senior, valedictorian, would come home, take her clothes upstairs and put them away, okay? She had never, ever folded clothes, okay? So I'm like, we're gonna learn how to fold clothes. We're gonna learn how to take clothes from the washing machine to the dryer. And she wondered how the washing machine washed clothes. She didn't even know how the washing machine washed the clothes, because to her, they were already dry when she got home. So she didn't know that concept of, dirty clothes, washing machine to the dryer. Something so simple for such a brilliant young lady that wasn't.
Olga, we lost you. If you can hear me.
I thought it was just me.
Went to college and knew how to use a washing machine.
There she is. All right.
There she is. Okay. We lost you there for a minute, Olga.
Oh no.
But I just want to piggyback on that, and it's maybe taking a step back that we start looking at those foundational skills, those daily living skills. I know that even general ed teachers have had to take a step back in looking at virtual, when parents have now had to come in and work with their child. So a lot of home skills are now being taught that may not have been taught. So as an O&M instructor, I think we can then talk with our clients, with our students about those daily living skills. and helping them through those processes,
And
especially for those who are just newly blinded
yes,
or
and that's what I was going to
impaired.
say. Those newly blinded individuals are probably wondering, how am I going to do this? You know, how am I going to do the washing machine? Or how am I going to go get my paper up from the front yard? You know, how am I going to do that? How am I going to do that now?
Mm-hmm. So Belinda just wrote that she was doing a lesson with a congenitally blind individual and was explaining an L route to him and asked him what an L looks like. And he said a straight line, because that's what an L looks like in Braille.
Mm-hmm.
So she had to give him a different understanding of what an L route is. So I think in stepping back, it'll help us firm up foundation and concepts of the people that we're working with.
And really what our L is not their L. So, you know,
Correct.
it doesn't have to be the same as our L. We just need to know what theirs is.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Now we're going to do a little philosophical information here, a little. There's something called Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And if you look this up, you will find lots of articles that say, okay, Maslow was really, really wrong. You know, you can have the top, you can have self-actualization, you can be creative and not have food and water, right? Yes, you can. But basically you read this from the bottom to the top, and Maslow said that if we had food and shelter and water, then we probably had a family, we probably had employment, we probably had good health. And you can see where people can write and say, no, you can have those without this, or not have good health, even though you have food and water, and so on. Anyway, so if you have food, water, and shelter, and you have good health, you have a family, you have employment, then you probably have a family, friends, you know, you have connections, right? And then it moves on that if you have all of this food, water, employment, family, and you have friendships, then you probably have confidence. Okay, but what Maslow's saying, if you don't have some of these, or we don't have some of these, you might not get to the second level or the third level or the fifth level, which is self-actualization, where people have acceptance of themselves or meaning, inner potential. So yes, you'll find some articles that say this is all wrong, but for today, let's think about COVID, okay? So COVID, some of these people right now who are in the hospital, some of these people that we're training, these children or these adults, these clients, you know, may have someone in their family that is really, really sick, okay? So their shelter, their physiological needs are not solid, okay? There's not a solid foundation in their family right now. Okay, their health, their whole safety and security for their family is not secure. Okay, and yes, they belong to a family, but you know, grandma might be in the care home, and she has, you know, the client hasn't seen grandma, and that's bothering them. Okay, so their number 3 is not so solid, you know, and that goes on to, you know, confidence or respect or conditions and self-actualization. This all goes on up, because if they don't have some of these things, or if there's some interruption to any of these hierarchy of needs that Maslow tells us we need, it may, and it will, you know, conflict with our lessons. And we kind of need to pay attention to what our clients' needs are. Jill and I just kind of threw that in because all through orientation mobility training, we've always had this. Maslow's always been brought up. If you remember that.
Yeah, well, and I just want to say, for our lessons to be successful, we have to make sure our clients and our students' needs are met first before they can even listen to what we have to say. And that was one of the reasons we brought this in.
And then even with Maslow, with our needs that we have for our agencies, the lighthouse needs, the school district needs, Chris Cole was telling us we need to do things this way or that way. We need to prioritize those needs. You know, we need to look at the family needs that our clients have. If we have a client or we have a student who has who's employed and they're relying on the O&M lessons for that employment, you know, we need to see what needs they have for that and how we're going to meet that virtually. Okay? The assessment needs. And then most of all, the role release to match those needs. I asked how many of you could go out and work with your students outside or your clients outside. Well, most of us can't, because we can't be 6 feet away from our clients. You know, we need to be a little closer than that. And most of us don't want to get sick or don't want to get our patients or our students sick, our clients sick. So we need to role release that and figure out ways how we can do this. Okay. And then frustrations. Okay, so we're doing something virtually, but we have masks on. Okay? Andrew, you said that there's a different sighted guide, human sight technique. Okay, it's different now. You know, there's different things that you're doing within the home or with teaching someone sighted guide, teaching someone differently. Okay? We might not be able to meet all of our clients' needs. Okay? And then the guidelines that come out change every day. Okay, or they're not out yet. Okay. So a school district might not be out with guidelines. I'm on a committee with Fort Worth ISD for vision screening. And I've been meeting with that superintendent, you know, like 3 times a week. And every time I talk to him, and I think now he's calling me for me to listen to him and acknowledge that, yeah, something else changed last night. Something else changed yesterday at 1 o'clock. And by 5 o'clock, it's something different. So it may be the same for your school district. It may be the same for your client's family, okay? They have a class, a lesson scheduled at 1 o'clock, but something happened with the family, with the employee needs, with the, if you're working with a person that you're gonna be working with at their work or for a technique they need for their work, something changes, so much change because of COVID.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. This was just a little thing. Joe, you want to go over it so that our people with visual impairments can know?
Sure. This is a cute little picture that came across that talked about what is 6 feet? How would that look like, especially in Texican talk? So it would be the length of 14 tacos side by side. It could be the length of 6 cowboy hats with the rims touching side by side, or 3 armadillos with nose touching tail, or 1 longhorn with big long horns, could be 6 feet in length. So it's just a little cute thing there.
Any of those things could be keeping us 6 feet apart.
Okay. So let's start looking at what are our resources. We've got different screen shares or internet type of platforms. I know that there's Google Classroom, Google Hangout, there is Zoom, there are telemedical type of platforms. I'm sure there are others. I'm not always familiar with some of those. There's YouTube that you can be putting out for your lessons. Do any of y'all have other resources for sharing video?
Hi, my name is Ian. I'm a mobility instructor with MAB, and I know that there's a YouTube channel for one of the people in my mobility cohort that when you called Blind on the Move, I think, that's been doing like introductory YouTube videos on mobility stuff. It's not an alternative sharing video source, but it is a alternative source of informational YouTube videos being shared.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes, YouTube has a lot out there. And there are some of what to do during COVID. I think I found 1 or 2 of them, and I'll share them at the end. One is called useloom.com, It's like YouTube, but a Google Chrome extension. So I know there are different virtual ways of sharing your lessons. So, and how do we find videos just mentioned? We'll go over some of those. It should be in the PowerPoint. What's not in the PowerPoint, I think you can just do a Google, like Blind on the Move. If you went to YouTube and just Googled Man on the Move, that should come up on YouTube. We've talked about some of Chris's live binders. He has live binders on concept development, on social skills. It's just a wealth of information. Another great resource is Donna Sauerberger's site. She's got a lot of self-study guides as well as videos to help teach different concepts. Olga, it's blank again.
Oh, goodness. I'm trying to get it up. Okay.
What is the liability of sharing a video? I would say we're talking more of auditory type of skills. So here it is. Okay, it's on there now. If you go to what's new on this site,
This show?
teaching street crossings remotely. Is that the, yeah.
Right here.
Mm-hmm. So here it is. She's got a whole bunch of stuff that she talks about how to do this. It also goes back to APH has some new software to teach street crossings. Again, I would say you are focusing more on the listening level rather than the actual learning level being in the middle of it, if that makes any sense. And I would say that this is a listening lesson. This is not a safety lesson.
And you can see the picture here. She's talking to someone. She has the person she's talking to on her phone. There's a telephone to the left of her. And there's on the telephone, there's a person's face on there. And Donna Sauerberger is sitting at her desk with a computer. At the computer on her screen, there's a picture of a crossing, a street crossing. And she's giving a lesson. What they were doing is and I'm not going to play it, but you all can go and play it afterwards. What she's doing is they're talking. She doesn't have the client at the crossing. You know, they're just talking about, okay, let's listen to the traffic. They're just listening, and then they're talking about whether they would have made it across. You know, let's talk about, you know, you think you would have made it across the way, and how the traffic, you know, the traffic will give you hints on that. Okay, so it was a listening lesson. Of course, you don't want to, well, he didn't make it across. No, it's, oh, okay, the person would not have made it across, or you wouldn't cross because there was a car coming. It's a big listening lesson.
Okay. Kelly wrote, Glide app is a nice way to share, to video yourself and share specific skills with families. Somebody else wrote, there's great videos on parentmobility.com. I forgot about that website.
Mm-hmm.
So please go back and check the chat. Y'all are putting up some great ideas, and I appreciate that. Okay.
I'm gonna get out of this. Let's see if we can go. Oh, okay. I'll go back.
Okay. One of the other things I think we have on here is, okay, that would be the next slide. Casey Maloney, who used to be an O&M instructor at Texas School for the Blind and has her own company called Allied Independence. She has lots of videos and podcasts for O&M specialists. So, and then again, teaching through, I think this one that I've got down here is teaching during virtual learning. Perkins School for the Blind has lots of videos again and podcasts. We also thought about making sure our clients and our students know about the different reading sites, such as Bookshare, Learning Ally, the National Library of Congress, the Texas State Library. And then from there, we have the products that you can get. Some of these are not through quota. Most of them are through quota. So there is the new software called Teaching Street Crossings to Students with Visual Impairments, which I think is Windows-based. There's also echolocation. Let me go back here. Whoops, wrong.
I'll go back.
No. I'm looking on my paper here. I'm sorry. Whoops. Okay. Echolocation, which is a book along with an electronic aid. Okay. Step by Step is an interactive guide to mobility techniques. These are all publications or curriculums. The Functional Skills Assessment will bring in all your daily living skills. And then there's a publication online only downloaded from APH called Orientation and Mobility for Wheelchair Users with Visual Impairment or Blindness. Okay, the next slide. So here we're talking about assistive technology and more software. Okay, is Crossing with No Traffic, that's a DVD you put into the computer. You saw the picture of Donna listening to traffic along with a client and being able to determine, is this a safe or not safe situation to cross the street? She's got a whole thing on risk management. The Flash Sonar, Nearby Explorer online, Mini Guide US, Mini Trivia, which uses Amazon Alexa or Google Action. O&M Family Booklet is software. There's a video called Denver the Dog Guide. There's a Sunu band that gives you haptic feedback. I'm not too sure about all of how that works because I've never used it. And then there's another video about reclaiming independence, staying in the driver's seat when you no longer drive. So these are all available to help you work with your clients when you can't virtually, yeah, from APH. Okay, and then the next slide, which is games and manipulatives to teach all the varied concepts that we can teach, which is Tactile Town, O&M Tactile Graphics, which is all kinds of diagrams, the Wheatley Diagram Kit, the Geometric Texture Kit. There's something called the Color Raceway Kit, which is brand new, that teaches different concepts. There's the Trex, the Game of Compass Directions. They have tactile clothing tape, so you can start teaching different kinds of clothing and how to market. Some other ideas. One thing I did with some of my students virtually is we started making maps and doing an art project out of it, which they absolutely loved. So I brought in compass directions, left and right, all those fun ideas. And we started with where is the sun, where's east and west, and all that fun stuff. And then she had to put it on paper to show me the compass directions. And then we went from that generally to mapping out her room, and then her room in relation to what's on the other side of her wall. So we ended up making a map of her house. But
and we can do maps.
Mm-hmm.
We can do maps of work environments, you know, neighborhoods for the older adult clients. You know, if you have a client that has to walk from the bus stop to their new job, something like that, you know, make a map, you know, and you could probably do that virtually. You know, you send them the materials or you ask them to do some, you know, send them part of the map and then they have to attach other pieces. I can just be creative, you know, send them the map kit or drop it off at their home or whatever, you know, and then work on it together virtually.
I think people like most people, I shouldn't say all people like working with their hands to create things like that. Then on other, if we are going to be in person, quote and unquote, there's been a lot of use of walkie-talkies or FM systems, so you can stay your 6 to 10 feet apart, but yet still have a lesson in person. You can have a significant other hold the phone that's watching them using their cane, so you can give instructions that way. A tandem bar, I think, will give you about 3 feet of space between each other where you can use your cane to move the client's or the student's cane, or use of a guide rope or bar, again, that will give you that space to be able to stay in person, but yet stay safe apart. Okay. The other thing are your social media groups. I highly encourage you, if you are not part of a group, there are many groups. Here are a couple of them that I know of. Teachers of the Blind and Visually Impaired O&M Specialists, Region 11 TBIs and Comms, which is specific to the Fort Worth area of Texas. And I realize there's a lot of y'all not from Texas, but there's also the Orientation Mobility Specialist Group, Orientation Mobility Instructors for the Blind and Visually Impaired. If you go to Facebook under Pages and do a search under Orientation and Mobility, it will bring up tons of different groups. If you can get connected with these groups, you can ask questions, see what other people around the country are doing. I've gotten a lot of helpful information from these groups. I'm not too sure about Twitter and Instagram. Don't follow all that, but I guarantee you can find somebody through that can also give you some of that support that you need. The other thing is YouTube is filled with videos. Let me give me a second here. There's APH has a bunch out from their virtual academies. There's one YouTube video on escape rooms for O&M, where you can kind of do a virtual thing. Again, just go onto YouTube, type Orientation and Mobility, and it'll do all this. The Association for the Blind and Visually Impaired, SC, has a whole thing on virtual O&M. There's O&M with Brooke. I think Brooke is a visually impaired person who goes through and talks about her adventures. She's not one to sit at home. There's lots and lots of them out there. Podcasts, if you go to, I know that Casey Maloney has podcasts. Texas School for the Blind just did a podcast with Chris Tabb and virtual learning. It's a brief one from the one they did earlier in the summer. If you go to Texas School for the Blind, type in A Sense of Texas, that will bring up all the podcasts. And I think it will bring up the one that was just released a couple of days ago, which is that Chris Tabb did. So those are some ideas and resources. We're not going to be able to know everything what to do at this point in time, especially with the uncertainty. But what I think we can do is share what we have done, and there's lots of information out there. I think too, if we share our resources, it brainstorms, and then we get more ideas from other people.
We didn't come up with all of this stuff on our own, you know, that we researched all of this and made sure that we found some things. The references don't have everything, and Jill added a whole lot, you know, towards the end there, so that was great. We are just two people that are out here just thought we would facilitate this. If we can help you with any of the things that came up, this is where we're at. This is our emails. But together we can all work and do so much. Wear your mask and work with your clients. Go forth virtually. What we want to do is we want to hear from some of you guys and what you're doing. What's going on? What do you most use for your teaching, your instructing now, right now with these past 3 months? What have you been doing, or what are you beginning to do? What do you have planned to do? Someone introduce themselves and tell us what they're doing.
Hey, maybe you should have people raise hands if they'd like to comment. I mean, we can call on them individually.
Diana Anisi, you raised hand. Diana?
Yes, hi everybody. I'm out in California, work for Montebello Unified School District. And I just wanted to share my experience with one of my students that may help give some other people some ideas. She's 9 years old, totally blind, really smart kid. And unfortunately, in my experience with her mother was a huge part of the success. So this, I guess the one thing that came to mind hearing all the ideas and comments is that our job with our students really have to, I guess, are really dependent on the individual situation, like you guys were saying. You got to really look at the families and what's going on. But in this case, with this particular student, the mom was awesome. So she would use her phone, and we found that FaceTime worked the best because the other platforms kind of strained her battery life on her phone. Mm-hmm. So she would take her phone, FaceTime, and I would have my student, take her to places in their neighborhood and guide her mom to like CVS or El Pollo Loco. So we were doing cardinal directions, we were counting blocks. So I could do basic things like that with that student, and it was really successful and lots of fun. And her mom, she was so amazed that her daughter could like get her to the CVS and take her back home. So that worked out really well. And I also figured in her situation, she has actually a tri coming up the beginning of this fall. And so I think I'll be able to do a limited type of assessment like that with that particular student and her mom. So I was just wanted to share that. Hopefully
I think that's a great idea. I think if we get our students and our clients to verbally describe a route, you can see where the holes are very easily.
Yes. Yeah, it's great for the kind of lessons I was doing to her, great for orientation skills. However, I was just thinking, like, if I was doing an assessment, it would be really difficult for me to see all her cane skills, and just like detailed things on the ground would be a little bit difficult. Mm-hmm. So that's why I'm saying you can do limited assessment that way.
You're going to assess what you can, right?
Yeah.
One other thing that I forgot to mention is there's a lot of apps for your phones that do mapping skills for your adults, if you want, or your students. I think, Andrew, you mentioned Breadcrumbs and Clue. There's also the AER, excuse me. I think that does have a fee with it to kind of help our clients with their travel and where they are going, teaching them how to use that so that they could safely navigate will give us some direction. Again, all I did was went onto the App Store and typed in orientation mobility, and I never knew about Breadcrumbs or Clue until I saw that. So
I'm a huge fan of AER, as you know, and I just wanted to mention that this month they are doubling the minutes on referrals. So If you
Oh.
refer someone to them, and they don't have to become a subscriber, they don't have to pay anything, but if they download the app and make a guest account, both the referrer and the client both get 60 minutes instead of 30. So that's just thought I'd mention that.
Thank you. Thank you.
Now I'm reading here on the chat that it says Oregon, the Oregon Commission for the Blind. I'm sorry, I kind of was reading it and then it moved away. They're having a stamina class, Oregon Commission for the Blind. They're having a stamina class for their O&M clients. What a great idea. You know, we could probably all use that because of COVID the past 3 months. We've been staying at home. But yeah, a stamina class, whether it be, you know, down the street and in the house or whatever, we just build up that stamina so people can get moving. That's a great idea. Oregon, you have any input? No, Ashley Smith, okay.
Any other ideas from y'all?
Come on, people.
Duo. FaceTime and Duo is much easier. It's one click to join where Zoom has several steps.
Thank you. Good.
I agree. I know with my third grader, she preferred FaceTime over Zoom. I think the other big thing for us is doing that role release, is having to teach the either significant other or family member our skills, what to look for when they're walking with the person with visual impairments.
I have to say, when I was an O&M instructor at the California School for the Blind, I was also an O&M instructor for Alameda County, and I had adults. And there was a time when the weather was really bad. It was winter time, and you know, Northern California, it's probably colder in the summer, but anyway, it was a winter and it was cold, and I had this client who had pretty good, you know, skills out in the street and all that, but his daily living skills were not great. And he lived with his mom and dad in a house. It was like a duplex, a house next door. And I said, "What games do you play?" And he said, "Games." And this was before the electronic age, guys, okay? And everybody said, I said, "Do you play cards? Do you play," you know, and he didn't know how to play any games. You know, his family had just skipped that part of his life. And so we invited his mom and dad, and later he told me, "My sister came to visit, and everybody was playing cards." And, you know, I taught him how to play fish, and I taught him how to play, hearts. I taught him how to play, you know, spades, these games that adults play that he could play. And later his mother said, "We never thought of doing that. We never thought of teaching," you know, and that was my O&M lesson. And I felt like I was giving him some lessons that we couldn't go outside because it was too cold and raining, and, you know, his health was, you know, at risk, but he learned so many things that winter that we worked on games, and his family, that was kind of a need his family had that they didn't even realize. You know? So it was kind of neat.
Okay. I put down into the chat the podcast I was talking about is from Chris Tabb. It's called A Sense of Texas, SENSE. The other thing is if you go to Texas School for the Blind's website, during the spring, they did what they called coffee chat, which they had various speakers 3 times a week. That has all been archived, so you can access all of that, the ones that have been recorded.
Marisa Lucero has her hand raised. Marisa?
Yeah, so I'm an orientation and mobility specialist in the San Diego area, and I work with adults. So my coworker and I have been, you know, the first semester, when this occurred, we kind of were winging it and doing group remote sessions. And this second semester, we've kind of organized things a little bit better. But, you know, we've organized it in a way that's similar to like a college class with a syllabus, so clients know what to expect. And we're creating content, but also using other tools out there to create content for our clients. For example, this month, our focus is on auditory skills. So we're going through a whole list of auditory skills. And I feel like these are things we don't typically get to really spend a sufficient amount of time on. We're usually out there doing it, as it occurs. So I think it's been a really great experience for the clients so far to work on those things in a quiet group area where they can share their experiences. That's also been great. O&M isn't typically formatted in a way where you have group settings. It's usually that one-on-one. So being in a group, people have been able to talk about what they're experiencing right now that COVID's going on, and when they have to go grocery shopping, how that social distancing is an issue, and then people get to share how they're working through it. So it's been really, really nice and a change.
Excellent.
So one thing you can do as an O&M, and Marissa kind of said something about auditory skills. There's a great book out there, Learning to Listen, Listening to Learn. I think APH puts it out, or AFP, excuse me, puts it out, has some great ideas for lessons. You as an O&M, if you can, go out and audio record an intersection and talking about that, and then send it you can upload it as a WAV file to your student or client. And I kind of did some of that. There are free sound bites that you can download off the internet to kind of talk about car intervals. Do you hear a car stopping? Is it stopping because it's a traffic control, or is it stopping because it's a stop sign, one of those rolling stops? So you can do lots of listening that way. Just make sure that your student or client, when they're listening, has headphones in both ears and not one, so they're getting it from both sides binaurally instead of one. Just some ideas there. Auditory treasure hunts, yes, yes. I had my student go kind of do that auditory treasure hunt where she had to go in the backyard, listen to sounds, and then write down what sounds she heard, kind of helping foster those Braille skills. Then she had to go out front and listen to the skills and tell me how they, sounds, excuse me, and then compare how were the sounds different from the backyard to the front yard. So just bringing in all kinds of auditory skills helps.
And if you taped, or if you audio taped, with your phone, your students in the past, of lessons you've had, those would be good to use now to show that what the student, to the parents, what the student or the client were able to do, and how they should continue doing some of that.
So, an idea I just thought of is some of the headphones, that'd be great for this are the aftershock headphones. And so they use the technology, it's called bone conduction. So you don't actually wear them on your ears. They actually, the speakers go in front of your ears. So it allows you to keep your ears open. You're able to hear what's around you. But you're still able to hear the sound as well from the headphones.
What do those cost, Sean?
They vary. I think they run like 50 to 100, but
Okay.
I've had a couple of them. They're really good, especially for using something like IRA.
Thanks, Sean.
I have not used Daniel Kish's Flash Sonar book, but I have taught bits and pieces of Dan Kish's echolocation to my students, and it really does help. That was one of the questions in the chat. Any other ideas? Go ahead.
How about Objective Ed?
Yep.
Objective Ed is a great resource to teach concepts, and he has games on there that kids could use, all sorts of concepts.
And Accessibite.
Olga, this is Kevin over here at Lighthouse. I'm division rehab teacher here at Lighthouse with Blind. And I was wondering how many of you out there are familiar with the We Walk cane. and some of its features. I know it has some features such as GPS built into it, Bluetooth capabilities. I've seen it demonstrated once or twice, and I don't know if that would help kind of build a bridge a little bit with its ability to, you know, have GPS programmed into it and its feedback. Are you guys familiar with that?
I think it does overhead.
What was the name of it?
Yeah, it does. Thank you, Sean. Yeah.
We walk. We walk cane.
The We Walk
Like
cane.
we walk.
We walk.
Okay. Okay.
I don't have any, I have no idea.
Other people?
Go.
ahead.
Okay. The other thing that occurred to me was, you know, when it comes to, you know, instructing somebody one-on-one in an O&M situation, if there were a third party involved, like say a spouse, a sibling, a parent especially, if the instructor were there but standing 10 feet away and they had a cane and the parent had a cane with the child and the instructor modeled for the parent how to teach the cane, would that not be something that would be feasible? Because again, the parent can do hand over hand while modeling what you're doing, and they're already, you know, living with them. They're already exposed to that person in the home anyway, right?
Kevin, can you ask Kristen Bailey to speak?
Kristen, do you want to speak about your experiences?
I just got it, so I haven't gotten out there and used it yet. It's sitting on the charger now. I live in a real small rural town, so I want to like get myself to a place with sidewalks and storefronts to give it a shot. But I'm happy to send any, you know, experience and things I learned to anyone who's interested. So, you know, if you want to give me whatever, I'll let you know how it goes for me.
And Lynn St. Pierre, it didn't quite work for you. Tell us about that.
Yeah. So up at the Seattle Lighthouse, there was 4 of us that gave it a good go, and I have to say, we only had 1 cane, but really the guidance system was bad. We found it was bad. It was bad. It literally sort of fell apart after about a half an hour use on a smooth sidewalk. And we were having problems with if you were going uphill or downhill, it really skewed how far ahead it gave you any sort of I'm sorry. We found that we were almost on top of whatever it was supposed to warn us.
Wasn't keen enough, yeah.
Have you gotten back to the developers with your findings?
We did. We about 4 of us emailed back, and we didn't get a whole lot of chat back. We asked for a session with them to talk about concerns, and I don't think they got back to us about that.
We'll have to get people to try it out and tell us what it's like.
Yeah. And Objective Ed was free for the spring when we had the emergency shutdowns throughout the country, but I do know it is a paid for app. I don't know if they're going to continue it being free if most people are going virtually, or if now districts are going to have to pay for that. Anybody else? Go ahead, Lynn.
The other problem was that it looked like a regular marshmallow tip, but it was made out of a harder plastic. And so there was quite a bit of vibration up the canes so that you couldn't feel the tactile feedback in the handle. It also had a really heavy handle that wore out our adult hands and wrists. So I'm not sure how that would work for kids because of how heavy the handle was.
Kevin, do you have a WeWalk? Kevin Higgins?
No, I do not have one. However, I have handled one before, and I do have to agree that the handle is heavy. It is a little cumbersome. I'd not had heard a whole lot of feedback until now about it. I was just thinking, you know, it has that overhead detection feature that's real popular. That's real helpful.
I think it's got some good ideas, but
yes,
maybe needs to be back in the drawing room.
maybe
We need an electrical engineer at that.
This is Sean, by the way. I just wanted to mention as well, you know, a lot of the audio-based games on the PC and also on the iPhone, I think that really helps with like echolocation, building sound awareness, spatial awareness. It definitely has helped me over the years.
Is there one in particular you recommend, Sean?
You know, there's been a couple over the years. My mind just went blank, but Blind Quest is one that has some pretty good spatial sound.
And actually, you have to learn your cardinal directions to navigate within the game. So it teaches you the relationship between northeast and south and so forth. Yeah.
And I think Marty, Marty Schultz has his educational. I think he's got some mobility games as well.
I am hoping that we have spawned some ideas in your head of what you can do to go forward in working with your clients or your students. I don't think it matters the age, because O&M is O&M. It's just adapting it to the ability level of your person that you're working with.
And I don't want our clients or our students to think, oh, I can't do anything because, you know, it's COVID. I'm just going to sit here. I'm just going to sit here. It's so boring. You know, let's give them something to do. Let's give them something to count, something to search, something to, during the summer at the California School for the Blind, myself and our O&M, fellow O&M instructors, we made up a calendar for June, July, and August. And like, we had an elementary level, and I have a copy of elementary level. I wish I had the older kids levels too, but we had elementary, middle, and high school. And like for the elementary, like 1 week, they had to learn all about the windows in their building that they lived. You know, some kids lived in apartments, some kids lived in houses, some kids lived in different environments. So, you know, what type of window, how did it open, up and down, did it have screens, was the window made of metal, was, you know, on the outer edge, was it wooden? Then they did doors, and we did ceilings, you know, ceilings, how high up. The kids were amazed when they came back, and we were reading some story about, you know, something flew up, you know, towards the light in the house. They're like, I know where the light in the house is. It's way up high. They didn't realize how high the light was. Even though they were low vision kids and they could see light, they didn't know how high up the light fixture was, you know. I mean, and just from those monthly things that parents had to work with with their kids. So it was all O&M environmental things. I'm gonna ask, I have a friend who probably has the higher level calendars. I need to ask her, and we need to build those up again. But they had something to do every week, and it was about their surroundings, and it was their home, but you know, in their environment, their outdoor environment near their home. But give them something to do.
Do we have any other ideas that we've sparked for you? I know also we can take some of this information to be able to be working with our students that have multiple impairments, because we don't want to not include them also because of COVID. There's lots of ideas. I've got lots of ideas for students with with lower functioning, especially chores. I'm a firm believer that kids should be doing chores as part of family responsibility, especially those that have additional impairments.
Yes, and for those of you that are asking about the calendars, I actually started writing those calendars, but I only had, and I wanted to have it ready for this presentation. I started writing August, September, October. I need to write them up, and I will get them for you guys. I had forgotten that we also had them for the older kids. When I was at the School for the Blind, I had 5-year-olds to 10-year-olds, and then like my other O&M group was like the 16 or 21-year-olds. So I did have those higher level calendars. I'll have to find them. If I don't, I know someone that has them. So I will, and I can redevelop.
Nanette wrote she'd like to know how to encourage people to get outside for fear of social distancing and being on their own. I think one of the best things you can do is start maybe just going from the home to get the mail and back. And then from there, maybe finding the nearest corner of their, and back. And I would start small to what they feel comfortable with. Oh, I can do this. I can do this on my own. And then maybe take it a step further. But I would start in a small confined area. And if going to the mailbox is too hard for them, then even getting to the back door or exploring if they have a backyard. I realize not everybody has a backyard, but to get out and explore their backyard or corner to corner from their house.
This is Sean, and speaking as a blind person, I can tell you, when all this came about in March, there was probably a good 3 or 4 weeks where we were working from home and we stayed home. I mean, we really just stayed indoors, but you got to get outside. You got to get out in the sun. You got to get some of that vitamin D and all that. And I noticed that probably the first time I walked to the mailbox after that 3 or 4 weeks, using my cane. I mean, the mailbox in my apartments is about 3 blocks away, and my cane skills suffered major. I was a mess. So we got to get outside. You just, as an adult, especially, you have to.
But you're probably healthy, had endurance and vitamin D.
Yes. And Jessica wrote, Allied Independence has a really nice lesson about using a rope knotted at 1 foot intervals to demonstrate 6 feet. Very good. And then using that rope to measure things around the house that were 6 feet apart.
Cool. Yeah.
Good idea, Jessica. Thank you. And again, much of this session is really dependent on y'all's ideas. This is a give and take sharing.
I'll ask you this. How many of you have used Texas two-steps? I'm sorry, I have to ask. Guys, anyone use Texas two-steps?
Ryan says yes.
Okay. If you go back to your slide that talks about Texas two-steps, we were always asked as educators, what is there to assess 0 to 5-year-olds? And I was very, very lucky, and I was in the San Francisco area and worked with the San Francisco Babies Foundation. So I learned so much from Lois, what was Lois's name? Lois Harrell and that group, the San Francisco Blind Babies Foundation. I was an O&Mer, and I did not have children at the time. I didn't know how to work with babies. I didn't even know how to carry a baby, but we had all these babies that we worked with. I learned so very much. And I worked at the assessment center at the School for the Blind. I came back and I said, what's out there to assess babies, to assess infants and toddlers? And we had students come from all over the state to our assessment center. So we assessed the infants and toddlers, and I learned how to use the Carolina, how to use the Hawaii, how to use what is it, Hawaii, the Carolina, the Oregon, so many of those that are on your slide that talks about Texas two-steps, that when I came here, I wanted to tell everybody in Texas about all these assessments. And we did have a bunch of assessments, and we put them all together. Oh my, we researched and looked at every skill for all of those assessments and came up with this Texas two-steps that now we have so that we can use for 0 to 5-year-olds to show growth. Because before, the skills, all those assessments we had to use 16 of them to equal one assessment now, Texas two-steps. So it's just so much fun doing that.
I think go ahead.
So it's Alex from Lighthouse. Hi. So I'm just wondering, what was everyone's experience with dealing with parents that are worried for their kids, or what if there's been positive or negative give back from them, and what have you done to get over that?
Are there any parents in this group? I know there was one parent. Margie, are you on? My tabby parent was going to be on.
Yeah. Jessica wrote that she had a lot of parents just shut down, and I think this was across the board, not specific to any disability, because I have a general ed teacher who teaches 5th grade in Fort Worth, and they had a lot of families just shut down. But I think we're going to see a difference in how people react now that we're all starting virtually again. I think the spring, everybody was in shock and everybody was in fear. We're kind of getting past that a little bit, where hopefully we will be able to get some learning and better learning going on in the fall now.
Allie, you wrote about students doing a lot of independent living skills. Do you feel like you kind of switched over to a little bit more of like the independent living instruction over orientation and mobility?
I think it just made it easier for the parents because those were skills that they felt like they were already confident in doing themselves. And so they could easily transfer that or, teach that to their child. It was more familiar and it gave them more confidence, and it just was a stress reliever knowing that they knew how to do that and they could teach their child that.
Diana?
Hi, okay. I just wanted to comment on the thing with the parents. Fortunately, in my situation, many of the parents, they just impressed me so much. They seem to actually really enjoy learning how capable their children were. Excellent. But then on the other hand, there were a few parents that seemed really stressed out at the whole idea of having to really become a teacher overnight, basically. Mm-hmm. And they're like our assistants, because without these parents and their help, I couldn't do my job. So a few were very stressed out and were not happy. And the way I handled it was I would just try to be very sensitive to them. I said, look, if this is too much, let me know. We'll try to adjust it to what you can handle. So
right.
That's
right. And that goes back to what we said in the beginning, is we have to kind of do a very quick needs assessment. What are our family needs? Because if they're not being met, our lessons cannot be taught. So we're going to have to take a step back. We're going to have to slow down in what we are teaching to kind of help those families. And one of our frustrations and one of our greatest assets is being able to role release our skills to the caretaker or the family member.
Um, Hi, hi, this is Beth, and I was accidentally unmuted before. I'm sorry about that. So I teach kids and adults, and you know, it is tough, obviously. With the kids is when I have parents with cane resistance. I've been showing those videos, the video from NFBs, with the one with the kids and the parents talking about using a cane. And I found that quite useful. I got a parent to turn the corner after watching that video and having a really careful, you know, gentle discussion about that. And then for adults, you know, I bet everything I'm saying is everything that everyone else is doing. It's nothing new is under the sun. I'm finding adults are far more interested now in, they always were interested, but now they're way more interested because they have more time often, learning how to effectively advocate for audible pedestrian signals and other pedestrian provisions. And, you know, I have like a multi-step thing on that where, you know, we talk about it. I give them a backup document for the talking points, and then they actually make the call to their public official, you know, the ADA coordinator. Then they call me back and tell me how it went, and we just kind of keep doing that until the job's done. And that's been successful and popular, and it's something with no risk and a lot of benefits. So thank you.
Thank you very much.
I had a patient, I know work in the medical center, but I had a patient who had to come to an eye doctor appointment, and we called them to tell them, you know, their appointment was like in 2 weeks. And the mother mentioned that they didn't know how they were going to get there. Well, this young lady is visually impaired. So my O&M skills, I thought, okay, let me talk to the child. She's like 15 years old. I said, have you ever used Uber? She's like, no. I said, you can use Uber. Let me teach you how. And so we went through the whole lesson on how to use Uber. She did have it because her O&M instructor, whom I know, had taught her how to use it. I didn't know that her instructor taught her. She came to her eye appointment using Uber with her mother. And I said, okay, you have to tell your O&M instructor that you did this. This is an O&M lesson that she taught you and you used it. She said, yeah, but I wouldn't have been able to do it without you telling me on the phone. I said, that's okay. You know, have your O&M instructor go over those lessons till you're capable of doing that on your own. And she needs to come back in 3 months. So I said, okay, you know how you're going to come back, right? She's like, yes, okay. You know, but it was so cool that she got to use that skill. And I'm like, okay, there's your O&M lesson. And she's 15. So as soon as she left, I did email her O&M instructor who was in one of our school districts. I said, and she says, okay, I told her to call you. She's like, okay, I'll make sure she does. So I said, it was really neat that she got here using Uber. And that's an adult skill, you know, as a 15-year-old kid, but that's a, you know, a 15-year-old can do it and an adult can do it too.
I do it every day. Hey, every day. Hey, Olga, I do got to give a little shameless plug here. Mm-hmm. So since March, Kevin and I and Alex have done probably over 70 videos on all different types of skills, and we have a couple of things going on here at the Lighthouse here in Fort Worth. But our YouTube channel is Lighthouse FW. F is in Frank, W is in whiskey. And just a couple of the things that we do throughout the month. The first Wednesday of the month at 10 in the morning, we have a blind adjustment support group. And we'll have, you know, anyone's interested that would like to be on our mailing list, just drop us a line from here, you know, and we can get you added to that. That's every month, the first Wednesday at 10. And then the last Wednesday at 10, a couple months ago, we started this Ask the Blind Guys. And it's just an opportunity for people to ask questions about blindness, you know, family, friends, colleagues, coworkers, whoever, sometimes people have questions. They don't know where to ask or how to get them answered. And so they can email those questions to asktheblindguys@lighthousefw.org. And then that is also recorded the last Wednesday of the month at 4. So this month will be August 26th. And those are all posted to YouTube. All of our events are always on our social media, Facebook, Twitter, email, etc. And, we'd just love to have anybody that's interested join us for that.
Yes. And it's also an interactive experience. It's on Zoom, of course, and so people are able to join the meeting as we were doing Ask the Blind Guys, and perhaps there's some questions that you could ask while you're joining us, or maybe answer some questions that maybe we don't have the answers to, because we don't know everything and we're all learning from each other.
We try to make it fun and interactive, and yeah, it's never a dull moment.
And they've been great. You have had some wonderful guests. My goodness.
We have, yeah.
Thank you. And we have some more on the horizon. We're working out between Sean and I, especially. So
the YouTube channel is Lighthouse, F as in Frank, W as in Wanda, and that's just the YouTube username. If you search that, all those videos will be up there. You can also go onto our website, and it's lighthousefw.org, and all the information will be on there as well. Thank you, Rebecca. She posted it on there as well.
Great.
Somebody had written earlier about they feel like they're more of a therapist, and I agree. There's this extraordinary time. I think just being quiet and listening to other people will help us get that buy-in to help families trust us a little bit more in working with their child or working with their loved one. And sometimes we're going to have to take several lessons just to listen and get through this. We will go forward.
And some people can't learn virtually. It's very difficult to learn virtually, depending on what it is they're trying to learn. So we need to keep plugging away, keep trying. I'm reading the message on the group chat.
Yeah, as it flies by. I think one thing we've learned also in these times is we do have a lot of people we can ask for help. We have lots of resources where we can go to ask for help and for ideas, especially if we have that one person who we just can't find the right lessons for. People have great ideas.
And someone talked about practice makes perfect. Family program and orientation mobility from Region 4.
this is Kevin again, Jill and Olga. And I just wanted to just briefly address the adult component, because earlier somebody had mentioned that they work with adults, and that's mostly what I do because I'm more of an independent living teacher. And one approach that I'm finding works well so far with my population is working in the area of communication. For example, the client could have a recorder of some kind, be it a pen friend or something, mailed to their home. And then when they receive it, they contacted me. And then while they're at home, they got me on speakerphone and I have them on speakerphone, and I have the device in front of me, they have it in front of them. And then I virtually and verbally describe how to use it. And I found that has worked very well here as of late. But of course, adults are a little different than kids because sometimes they are a little more interested, depending on the adult. But it's just my 2 cents for that.
Thank you.
once we're done with this meeting, would be a good time to see if this is something that we would want to reassess once school starts and maybe things open up a little bit more, to see if once people really start instructing, because I know a lot of schools aren't even going back, or they're doing virtual up until about mid-September and end of September, and that's when TWC is also possibly restarting their services around the end of September, or maybe the end of August.
Yeah, maybe we develop kind of like a focus group, like a monthly focus group on this. This might be a good platform for this.
I know I shared this via Facebook. I'm not sure how many of you heard about it. So if that's something that I can reshare through Facebook again, and we can reassess the situation when the time comes and maybe make it a little bit more of an open forum at that time and have a couple more ideas from everybody.
I agree. We need to be sharing our information. I think as a teacher, I learned steal, steal, steal. Get an idea and steal it.
Borrow.
Borrow.
Dust.
No, it's called pay it forward.
There you go. See, Cynthia's going to write a handout on the many transit options that are out there. She's working with her. I'm saying that, Cynthia.
Okay.
She's not really. I'm just suggesting she do that. I mean, Cynthia Lashinsky. Okay. Anyway, she's saying she has some students that she's been working on transit options. Excellent, excellent. Depending on where you live, some of those transit options could be huge. I mean, from we used to not have Uber, but from Uber down to, the skateboard. I don't know. No, okay. No, but walking down the street, to the bus stop, even getting in the car versus getting in a truck, versus getting in a RV, getting in a bus. Students don't know the parts of a bus when they get on the bus. Students don't know, what do you do with your cane when you get in the car? When these kids are, younger or newly blinded adults, what do you do with your cane when you get in the car? If you don't have a folding cane, or if you have a folding cane, do you fold it? Do you leave it out? Things like that. I mean, there are so many things going on that can be discussed in a little book like that, a little handout like that. But transit options. So it looks like she teaches her students, how to use the bus system, and how to use, it goes all the way down to how to use Uber and all that. So researching on the internet, calling customer service. That's advocacy skills. Yeah. That's all skills.
I think telephone/conversational skills are very critical skills that we need to be teaching. So
even if at first you make a list, you get out your braille writer or you get out your phone and you think of things, a list of what you're going to ask before you call. I mean, that's a process that kids have to have. You can't have it all in your head. They need to know that it's okay to make a list, and so that you'll know what you're going to ask when you call that.
Yeah, Cindy wrote about what do you do for lessons for students with multiple impairments. I've got tons of ideas. For one thing is, again, I'll get on my platform, chores. So a student should be able to, even if they're in a wheelchair, being able to put their spoon into the sink, so that you have to wheel them from the table to the sink, and they can then take their hand and let go of the spoon and listen to it hit the sink. So they know the difference of the sink area versus their eating area. Little things like that, putting trash in the trash can. To me, that's a chore. That is taking responsibility for yourself. I think what helps build self-esteem is being part of the family. And so as a mom, you could say, oh, you helped me so much. Kids love to hear that. Our kids with disabilities need to hear that too. So even if it is just putting the spoon in the sink or putting a napkin in the trash, instead of just sitting there, they've helped. Another way is taking trash out to the sidewalk or to the garage to put it into the trash can. You put the plastic sack on the wheelchair tray and you wheel them. You're doing the work, but they're with you, helping you. So now they're getting an idea. The trash is going somewhere. And you could talk about, ooh, the stinky trash. It smells. We've got to get it out of the kitchen and get it out of the house so it doesn't smell anymore. You're bringing in so many concepts. The other thing to do is teaching them to make choices. So many times we just dress our kids without giving them that choice. Do you want this one or this one? Hopefully they will do an eye gaze or a blink or a touch, you know, touch one on the left, one on the right. Which one do you want to wear? We're not going to put our shoes on our hands. We're going to put our shoes on our feet. And just giving them that wait time. Where do our shoes go? And then you wait, maybe count to 15 or 20. And then you say, oh yes, on my feet, giving them time to process. Where are you going to put that? It takes a long time. And I know that you can't always dress a kid and take that much time, but you're giving them that time to process that information. If they have some sort of vocal output or body language output that you can read, that to me, that's making choices. So that will help as an O&M. Do I put it on this side, the left side, or the right side? Do I put it on my head or do I put it on my toes? The silly you are with young children, the more engaged they're going to be. I hope that gives you a list, some ideas. The other thing you could do as an O&M with a baby is talk about the different sounds and smells in each part of the house. A bedroom is very different than the living room. It's very different than the kitchen. It's very different than the garage. So you're giving them some spatial understanding of where they are and giving meaning to what their senses are bringing into their bodies.
And knowledge about their environments. I mean, what is different about each different room? I like this comment from Diana, who said that she taught her student who could walk 2 blocks in one direction and then change back with his dad. How fun for his dad to see what his child could do, you know, get orientation skills. You could extend that to, you know, going to a common store, Walgreens or something. So, you know, you buy shampoo at least, you know, once every 2 weeks or something. You know, so he'll learn what aisle the shampoo's in or whatever, and let the child guide him, you know, to where things are, just so that they can learn where things are at, where things come from, you know, where things belong. Yeah.
And Diana said comparing and contrasting the different transit systems, Uber and Lyft versus a taxi, you know, versus your own family member. I think having the accessibility with maps within your phones that you can then give directions instead of maps giving the directions to the driver, that would help with your understanding of where you're going.
Hey, it's Sean. I tell you, using Google Maps and then apps like Nearby Explorer and things like that, and just writing with friends and family and such, and building that mental map of the Metroplex. So like here in Fort Worth, knowing where 820 and how it runs and how 35 runs and how I-30 runs, and then knowing where all the suburbs are. And, you know, it really helps to build that mental map in your head to even if you're riding in the car going somewhere, it just makes a real big difference to be able to communicate that to people, especially if they're driving for you, being able to explain where you're going. And, you know, I think that's definitely helped me in you know.
Well, it's a sense of control.
We've had a huge discussion at what's a Braille competition class? The Braille
Challenge?
Braille Challenge. There was a story in one of the Braille Challenge stories, and it was talking about an envelope and how you address an envelope. So after the session, we were the facilitators, and the kids were talking about what city they lived in. I said, well, you wouldn't mail a letter to Arlington if you lived in Fort Worth. So your envelope actually has your name on it, and it says Fort Worth, and it doesn't say Arlington if you live in Fort Worth, you know. And they were all, so where do you live? Where do you live? So it was a little lesson real quick, and we're all 5 kids in my little Braille session there, where they lived. And then I said, so what county are they in? And that blew them away, you know, because they didn't realize that city was in a county. What's a county? So then we started talking about that. And then it was time to go. But I said, okay, go home, have your O&M instructors and your mom and dad tell you about counties and cities. Okay. But they didn't realize there were counties, you know, and it was fun. It was fun. And, you know, adults need to know that. Kids need to know. They all need to know that. It's just, it's orienting. It's orienting. Yeah. Okay, and Lauren says, coworkers have discussed having students build their own O&M cane vocabulary. That's good. Let the students, whether it's an adult client or a school student, build O&M cane vocabulary. And it could vary. I mean, it depending on what their O&M cane does for them, and what, you know, what sounds, what it all means to them. Not just the part of a cane, but where the cane leads them to, what it touches. Yeah.
Lori writes, she's taught bus route shapes by looking at bus routes from one place to another on Google Maps. That's a really good lesson to even realize there are different bus routes. They may some go along the same roads, and then they branch off. And where do they branch off? To even know which bus number to take or what route number to take.
I just wanted to say we really appreciate everybody that's joined today. I think it's been a real big success.
Okay, thank you. It's about 3 o'clock, almost 3 o'clock, 2 more minutes. Thank you for coming. And yes, I feel like it's been a success. If anything, I hope that you learned about some sites that are out there that are available for us, and learned from each other, because we all together can learn so much from each other, that we can do so much from learning from each other. I see lots of great things that are going on, and yeah, keep working with those parents, working with the teachers that work with your kids. You know, find out what the social studies teacher is teaching, what the math teacher is teaching. Try to get in there, get some O&M in those lessons.
Yeah, there will be a recap email that goes out that'll have the PowerPoint and the notes, you know, from the chat, and along with the link to the video, if anybody would like to share that to your colleagues, coworkers, friends, family, whoever.
And do tune in to Lighthouse Fort Worth on Wednesdays. They have some fabulous guests, and you might want to look at those YouTubes, because yeah, there's a really cool artist that they brought in, that they talked about, that he gave the whole, I don't know if it was 2-hour lesson. I mean, he was great.
John Bramlett, yes, John Bramlett.
Yeah.
And never be afraid to ask questions and seek answers. Don't ever give up.
Yes. And a lot of those things on your handout, anything that's blue has hyperlinks, so you can go straight to that website. And on the references, I put those websites there so that you can go straight to them, so that give you more time to do other things instead of searching. And from there, you can search other things on those sites. Yeah.
And if anything, come join us on August 26th at 4 for Ask the Blind Guys.
There you go.
And I, that'll be going out on our email here soon. So come join us.
August 26th.
Find us on Facebook.